Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. It's a live webinar where we look at Lyme disease and hopefully find some ways that can improve your treatment and your health together. So you create the webinars with your questions. I just get to respond to them, but ultimately where we're going to go with the webinar tonight is based on what you asked me. And so feel free to do that. And the way that you wind up doing it is over here on the right-hand side of the screen towards the bottom is a chat box. And what I'd have you do is write your question to me in that chat box. Keep in mind, if you hit the enter key, it actually sends the question to me. So if you want, it makes it easier if you write your question all out as one long run-on sentence without breaking it into paragraphs. That's going to work best for me. Okay, so if you hit the enter key multiple times, I have to find the various pieces to your question mixed in with all the other questions that are coming towards me too. So please be careful about that. I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar. And tomorrow morning, those of you that have registered for this will get an email from me somewhere around 6 or 6:30 in the morning. And you can use that email to open it up, and there'll be a link in there for the recording. If you don't get that email, there's a few other ways to find the recording. First of all, you can go to the webinars page at treatlyme.net, which is my Treat Lyme site. And on there is a recording page where you can actually watch the recording there. Another place that you can look at the recording is at my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements. On the bottom of the homepage, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I post the recording there too. And then finally, I will put it up on my Facebook page tomorrow, which is at Facebook /Treat Lyme. Okay, so there's various places that you can find that recording. I'll be editing it up later tonight. So I see a number of familiar names, and I see some new names as well too. For those of you that are coming back again, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad that you still are seeing these webinars to be helpful for you. And for those of you that are new, welcome here, and feel free to participate. Keep in mind that I usually get more questions than I can answer, and that with one question, I often will diverge into some other ideas that I find could be helpful for you as well too. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, one other thing. I know that I probably look very beat up tonight. I saw my skin doctor for here, and I think one over here. Anyhow, I used to like sunshine a lot before I moved to Seattle. I still like sunshine, but there were some sun changes to my skin that need to be taken care of, some precancer lesions. So that's why I look really beat up. He went to town on me, did a lot of freezing of those skin lesions. So that's what those are about tonight. All right. And hopefully they'll heal over soon. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and take the first question. What you're going to see is that as I take the questions, you'll be able to read them on the bottom of the screen. I am, however, going to also read those questions because sometimes in the recorded version, it's not easy to read those questions, okay? So let's go ahead and get started here. Hello, Ginger. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. My 4-year-old had an attached tick last week for 3 to 4 hours and was very fevery the following couple of days. It could have just been a cold, but I'm wondering if you'd recommend antibiotics, and if so, what type and dosage? It's a good question. So it's not a simple answer. In general, I probably would, but it depends on where you are. Okay, so if the things to consider about whether you want to use antibiotics preemptively with a tick bite like this are, number one, where do you live? So if you happen to live in an area where we have a lot of Lyme, it makes sense because there could be a high chance that she got Lyme from that tick, okay? So for instance, in New Jersey, studies tell us that probably 95% of ticks carry Lyme out there, all right? So if you were in New Jersey, I'd say absolutely probably get on antibiotics. On the other hand, Northern California, the studies say maybe 40% of ticks carry Lyme there. So even though it's high, it's a lower chance, okay? And then there's other parts of the country where there is Lyme, but it's just not a lot of Lyme, okay? So you've got to consider, where are you? Number two, the length of the tick attachment does matter. And although the Infectious Disease Society of America and the Centers for Disease Control all say it has to be attached for 36 hours, yeah, the chances of it getting transmitted go up with the longer it is attached. However, I have seen situations with short attachments result in Lyme. And although it's not, granted, there is a greater chance of having Lyme transmitted by that attached tick for a longer attachment, it can still happen with short attachments, okay? And so that 36 hours that the Infectious Disease Society of America and Centers for Disease Control draws a line in the sand and says, it has to be 36 hours, that's garbage. It can be any length of time, but your chances go up if it's attached longer, okay? So I'm kind of I'm limited in giving you the best information because I don't know where you live, okay? But in general, if you're in an area where you could get Lyme and it was attached for 3 to 4 hours, I would suggest getting on an antibiotic. And for a child that is 4 years old, you've got a couple of options. You could either use amoxicillin for 3 weeks, or you could use azithromycin, also known as Zithromax, for 3 weeks, okay? I don't have any idea how much your 4-year-old weighs, but typically 4-year-old's going to weigh around 40 pounds. I mean, that's just an average, okay? And that would mean, let's see, 10 to 20. Probably I would have your 4-year-old on the Zithromax. It comes as a liquid as a 250, I think it's 200 milligrams per 5 milliliters. I would probably have her do about 4 milliliters one time a day on that, okay? And then the amoxicillin, probably about 250 milligrams 3 times a day, but your doctors should actually calculate out that dose. The key thing, though, is to make sure that they use it for at least 3 to 4 weeks, okay? So those are my thoughts on what I would do. Again, it's not a slam dunk, yes or no. If you are in an area where there's lots of Lyme, absolutely. If you're in an area where there's not much Lyme, you might even take a wait and see approach to see, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Ginger. Good luck to your daughter, actually, too. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. I have Lyme and Bartonella. I just tested positive for Coxsackie virus. Is this a common co-infection? What do you recommend for treatment? What herbals can I take for Lyme and Bartonella? No cemento. Okay, so Coxsackie is not a co-infection. So there's a group of viruses that live in healthy people that also live in people with Lyme, okay? So common viruses that live in healthy people that our immune systems develop a reaction to and they keep it under control, those common viruses are human herpes virus type 6, maybe human herpes virus type 8. Those are respiratory herpes. They're not the sexually transmitted herpes, okay? Something called cytomegalovirus, something called Epstein-Barr virus, which is the monovirus, parvovirus B19, Coxsackie viruses can be in that group as well, too. These are common viruses. If you were to pull 100 healthy people off the street and you were to test to see if they have antibodies against viruses like these, they'll have them, okay? About maybe 10 or 20% will have them. The issue in Lyme disease isn't whether you got these viruses from the tick. The issue is that when your immune system is dealing with Lyme, sometimes because of immune suppression, it loses its ability to keep these viruses under control, and then they might become part of your problem, okay? So I know a number of my colleagues will look and test for viruses, but generally what my approach is to not even look for them until maybe about 9 months or so into a treatment if I've got somebody that's not improving. Because all of the things that I recommend that you do to get Lyme under control, like get sleep, like lower cytokines, those inflammation chemicals that get made in Lyme called cytokines, like support your adrenal glands, like get yeast out if they're in your intestines, like use antimicrobials to treat your Lyme. All those things ultimately knock Lyme down, boost your immune system, and make it so that it can take care of the viruses on their own again, okay? But if they were about 9 months into treatment and somebody's not getting better, I might start looking for viruses, but the way I look for it is different. I don't measure antibody levels. So probably that positive Coxsackie virus test you had was they measured something called IgG antibodies, and they found you had some slightly elevated. And that's fine. It just means your immune system is doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to keep those viruses under control so we can cohabitate with them. So just having elevated IgG antibodies doesn't say whether it's a problem. What you really want to know is, do you have too many viruses in you? And a way to measure that is to measure an enzyme that is made in the coats and the coverings of viruses called nagalase. And I find that if a nagalase level is above about 1.2 or more, that I find it beneficial to treat for viruses, okay? But again, I wouldn't even bother doing that until about 9 months into treatment. I wouldn't even look for it until about 9 months into treatment. You're treating Lyme, because often just dealing with Lyme is going to be enough to get those viruses under control. Okay. So in a second here, I'm going to show you a whole article I've written about viruses and what do you do and how do you determine do you need to treat them, where I explain in writing a lot of what I just said. I'll show you that article here in a second. All right. Let's see here. So no, I would not recommend treatment necessarily. Okay. Let's see, what herbals can I take for Lyme and Bartonella? So for Bartonella, you can look this up later too in my article on how to treat Bartonella. It's called Kills Bartonella, a Brief Guide. And the two herbs that you can use are Sitta acuta and something called Hutania. And Sitta acuta, I would start at 1/4 teaspoon 3 times a day, and in a week or two, increase it to 1/2 teaspoon 3 times a day. The Hutania, I would start at 5 drops 2 times a day, and increase by 1 drop per dose, working up towards 30 drops twice a day. All right. Now, for as a Bartonella treatment, they'll work about 70 to 75% of the time. Prescription antibiotics tend to work a little bit better, about 80 to 85% of the time, but that is an herbal option that you could use. Cemento, everybody, is cat's claw. I assuming for some reason you can't do cat's claw. So if you're looking at other herbs that you might use to treat Lyme that is not cat's claw, you might take a look at teasel root. That's Teasel. And you might combine that also with Sitta acuta. Sitta acuta can also treat Lyme too. And those two herbs, I think, will probably work about 70, 75% of the time. I don't think they work quite as well as a cat's claw otobabark mixture, which Nutrimetics brands as Cemento and Banderol, okay? If you are to do a Sitta acuta and along with the teasel, the way I would do the teasel is to start at 5 drops twice a day and increase by 1 drop per dose every day until you reach 30 drops twice a day. Okay. Now, on all of those regimens, if you start getting a Herxheimer reaction, don't increase until that passes. Okay. You don't want to have to keep. You don't need to keep advancing into something that's making you worse. All right. All right. So let me show you a couple articles here. All right, so I'm taking my Lyme disease information site. So many of you may be aware, but I'm in the process of updating the site. I changed the site name, come up with a new logo. I'm in the middle of working with some web designers to come up with a more functional website here too. So just be aware of that. I know that the paywall that you have to use to get to articles and to pay for articles is a little bit clunky. That's going to be fixed up in the new site. And also there will be the navigation part of how you find things is going to be a lot cleaner as well too. Okay. So, but this is what we got for right now. And so in terms of how I've organized things by topic. And in terms of things that how you would go about treating Bartonella, take a look at my, and viruses too, take a look at my infection treatment plans chapter, okay? Scroll on down here. Here's an article called How and When to Treat Chronic Viruses. Take a look at that one. And for prescription options for Bartonella and written information about that Hutania and Sitta acuta, take a look at my article called Kills Bartonella, a Brief Guide, okay? All right. And thank you for that question. Let me go back here. All right. Thank you, Brenda. Good luck. Oh, hi, Tim. Thank you for that question. Or thank you for that saying hi, I should say. Hello, Jenny. Let's see. Thank you for your help. You're welcome. I'd like to know what is wrong with me. I've developed intermittent neuropathy, numbness with occasional muscle spasms in my left lower leg for 6 months. This lasts for a few days to a week and goes away. Also, for the last week, I have developed intermittent neuropathy in my something. Jenny, I'm trying to see if I can find a second part to your question here. Oh, there it is. In my left lower ear, left side of jaw, and left neck. This deals with position changes in my head. I have a history of OA of my C-spine after a motor vehicle accident with severe whiplash 8 years ago. Don't know if I have nerve impingement, some osteophytes, or developing MS. Stopped B6, took DMSA years ago for heavy metal, taking cemento. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Taking cemento, resveratrol, and crypto now. Was on cemento, Banderol 12 months before. Also took Hutania, Sida Akuta 6 months. What's wrong with me? MS, nerve impingement, thanks. Jenny, I got to tell you, I don't know. I would need to ask a lot of questions. There could be a number of things going on. Probably the best thing to do, if you want my input, would be to consider doing one of my online visits where I visit with you one-on-one. We do a Skype visit, basically. And through that, I can ask you a lot of questions and give you my opinion about what may be going on and even recommend treatments. Some of those might be herbal if that's the direction you want to go, or we could even look at prescriptions if you could get somebody to prescribe. The only issue with those visits is because I don't get to examine you here in person. My medical board will not allow me to prescribe treatments for you or even sign off and order tests, but I can give you information that you could bring back to your doctor. I write a visit note that you can take to your doctor and get some help, but I can give you my opinion. So let me show you where you would look at on how to do that real quick, okay? And just do a quick screen share here. This is at TreatLime again. So in addition to all these written materials that I have here that give you information that you can do on your own to recover from Lyme, one of the other services I offer is this online consult. So you'll find it under this tab here. The thing I would ask you if you're interested in this is read through this whole page before you make contact with us, okay, so you understand how it works. So there's a whole page about how does it work, okay? Read through that. Read my disclaimer and sign the consent form so that you're really knowledgeable about what you're getting into, okay? But this is one way that I can give you better input and could give you accurate input. It's hard for me to say what's going on with you based on what you've written there. I need to ask a lot of questions, okay? All right. And anyone could do this online consult. It's open to anyone, okay? All right. Let me go back here. I can't help you more directly than that. Hello, Sida. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Do you see downsides to using Doxy for about 1 month or so during the 9-month Cowden support protocol from NutriMedics? I just started the Cowden support protocol, and I'm wondering if I should get a doctor to prescribe Doxy for me as well. I had an EM rash in 2012. That's the bullseye rash, everyone. It's also known as erythema migrans, or EM. I was treated with Doxy for 10 days. Now feeling sick in 2018 with frontal headache, etc., migrating muscle and joint pain, tingling on and off, flu-like symptoms. I guess it has been in remission all these years and now flared up. Also, generally, do you know if Doxy is more potent than minocycline? One more thing, I keep getting weird lesion sores on the right side of my tongue. Is this Lyme related? Okay. So those lesions or sores that you may be getting, without being able to look at them, one thing that can happen is you can get canker sores. Okay, so canker sores, we don't really know what causes them, but they can be like little white ulcerations that you can get on your tongue, sometimes on the lip. They often tend to come out more when a person is under stress. They could be bacterial caused, they may be viral caused. We're just not really sure. All right. What I have seen though is that when people have been treated for Lyme before in the past by being on antibiotics, sometimes they're a setup for getting too many yeast in their intestines. And for some reason, for whatever reason, I've never seen a scientific research piece that explains why. When you get too many yeast in your intestines, it makes it a lot easier for sores in your mouth to come out, like cold sores. So I see that often. So the one thing I would wonder is, do you have too many yeast? Okay, just briefly by what you described. Things that make me wonder about too many yeast would be increased sugar cravings, increased intestinal gasiness or bloating, sometimes vaginal itching, vaginal discharge, difficulty swallowing, and skin rashes or mouth lesions. Those are things that could make me think about yeast. Okay. Now the thing is if you got too many yeast do two things. Number one, they release toxins in your intestines called they're neurotoxins, so they can bring out nerve symptoms. Okay. Secondly, the immune system will see those yeast and try to get rid of them. And one of the things the immune system will do is it will make cytokines. And cytokines are inflammatory chemicals that are good and bad. But in Lyme, they're made in too great of an amount. And on the bad side, when they're made too much, they can suppress the immune system. They can make it so you can't think. They give you fatigue. They make you hurt all over. They can give you muscle twitches. They can give you neuropathy. So basically, when somebody has Lyme symptoms, what they really have are too many cytokine symptoms, okay? The thing that cytokines are supposed to do that's good is supposed to turn the immune system on. But if the immune system doesn't do a good job, it just keeps trying harder and harder and eventually makes too many cytokines, giving you many of your symptoms, okay? So again, regarding those sores, maybe that's a manifestation of yeast. So you should consider, do you have too many yeast based on those questions I just asked you. But also, I have a whole article I'll show you about where you can look at to help you figure out if you have too many yeast as well, too. Okay. Now, back to your question about the doxycycline. You could use doxycycline along with the Cowden protocol herbs. I will tell you the Cowden protocol, although I like two of the major components of that protocol, which is the cat's claw and the Otoba, which they call Cemento and Banderol. I actually generally do not find it to be that helpful of a protocol. I think part of the problem is the way they rotate their herbs, and I don't think that the protocol is tailored enough for what is happening with you. What you might find better success with actually is taking a look at my Lyme disease treatment protocol. I'll show you that in a minute, where you can make individual choices about what's happening with you, about the things that you should include and how you treat yourself, so you more individualize it, okay? But if you were to do docs, yeah, you could do that. You might get more benefit. I don't know whether you would fully get benefit or not. And so anyhow, that would be my comments on that, okay? And then finally, let's see here. Oh, you asked whether doxy is better than minocycline. They both can be good. I tend to use minocycline more in situations where I have neuropathies or confusion. And the reason, or mental impairment, severe cognition problems, the reason I do that is minocycline is more fat soluble than doxycycline. And things that are more fat soluble, that are more easily get into fatty tissues, get into the brain better, okay? So sometimes it can work better. Now, there's a problem with minocycline, though, and that is because it gets into the fatty tissues so easily and into the brain well, sometimes it concentrates so strongly around the nerves that it can create problems, like it can give depression, like it can give neuropathies, like it might give you dizziness, for instance, okay? So there could be problems with using it too, but if I've got somebody with a lot of cognitive thinking issues, or neuropathies, I might choose minocycline over doxycycline for that reason. Okay, I find it more fat soluble, and therefore it can get into those tissues a lot easier. All right. So let me do a quick screen share here. Oh, so my treatment protocol is here. It's under this tab called the treatment protocol. Okay. And so this is a better way to individualize your treatment than Cowden. And it deals with some things that Cowden just doesn't even deal with. Okay. So first of all, as I said, the reason that you feel badly, so first of all, one thing you want to do in Lyme is get sleep. I gave you some suggestions about doing that. Getting sleep lowers cytokines. It also helps you feel better. Number two, Cowden does not address this at all, but there's a diet that's better for people with Lyme, especially at the beginning of treatment. That's a paleo type diet, and I give you a recommendation on how to do that. Number three, lower inflammation cytokines, because they're what's giving you most of your symptoms, and in excess, they suppress the immune system. And again, Cowden does not address this. This is like a critical part of any Lyme treatment, and Cowden protocol does not address this at all. So you need to lower cytokines, and I like using curcumin, which comes from the Indian seasoning turmeric to do that, okay? Number four, be on an adaptogen, something that helps your body deal with stress. I like using ashwagandha. Cowden does have an adaptogen formula, but ashwagandha is the way to do that. Number five, consider if you have adrenal or thyroid problems and fix them, and I tell you how to do that here. Number six, be on a good multivitamin. Number seven, treat yeast overgrowth if you have it. A lot of times people with Lyme do have it. Cowden does not address this at all. Number eight, treat your Lyme germ. Number nine, deal with detoxification. Number 10, treat Bartonella and Babesia. These are the key parts to any Lyme treatment, okay? And basically my objection to the Cowden protocol is he leaves too many holes. There's things that he just doesn't deal with strongly enough, including dealing with cytokines, including giving you options for sleep. He has no consideration about whether you might have yeast overgrowth, which is a huge problem often when people have Lyme. Anyhow, there's various problems I have with it. I think you'll find the treatment protocol I have to be more thorough and a better way of going after it. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Cinna. Thank you for that. Okay, let's see. Hey there. Thanks for taking my question. You're welcome. Let's see. I was positive on bands 23, 39, and 41. I didn't know it at the time, but I had the flu when my blood was drawn. Would that affect the results? K, I'm doubtful that it would affect the results. But let me expand upon that just a little bit, okay? So when we're doing a Western blot, we're looking to see, has your immune system made antibodies that attach to Lyme proteins, okay? So antibodies, you can think of, they're proteins made by the immune system. You can think of them like a big antenna or tower signaling device. And once they attach to a germ, they send out information to the rest of the immune system, letting the germ know, or the immune system know it's got a germ to come and get it. So those cells that will then come to deal with the germ that actually kill the germ, okay? So they're a signaling device or a marker, a way we tag germs to be removed, basically. All right, so now bands 34, 39, and 41, those are three proteins. One of those proteins weighs 23 kilodaltons. Another one weighs 39 kilodaltons, and a third one weighs 41 kilodaltons, okay? Kilodalton's a microscopic unit of weight. When we do the Western blot, of the various antibodies we can look to see if you have attached to certain proteins, there are 6 proteins that we focus on the most. Those are the 2325, which you're calling 23 here, 31, 34, 39, 41, and 8393. Now, the 23, 39, and 41 is something that is included in the FDA-approved test kit using Centers for Disease Control guidelines. It's the test kit that you would get if you went to any lab, basically, okay? Many of us in the world of Lyme use labs that specialize in Lyme testing. And for instance, I use IGeneX. Now, IGeneX will look to see if you have antibodies against those 6 proteins I was just telling you about, plus 6 additional ones too. So for 12 proteins, okay? Now, the reason we focus on the 6 that I just told you about, 23-25, 31, 34, 39, 41, and 83-93, is when an antibody is stuck on those proteins, there's a great chance it was actually made against Lyme. All right, so I said a great chance, okay? So what the issue is that those proteins, it rarely is possible that viruses, that when we have viruses like the other viruses, not the flu virus, but viruses like Epstein-Barr, like cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr is the monovirus, cytomegalovirus, human herpes virus type 6, sometimes the antibodies made against those viruses can cross-attach to these proteins, these Lyme proteins, okay? But it would be rare that it would happen to 2 Lyme proteins, and it would be almost next to impossible that it would happen to 3 Lyme proteins. All right. Also, I do not tend to think of the flu as being a virus for which you have antibodies that attach to it that might cross-react with the Lyme proteins as well, too. So, because you had antibodies against 3 of these Lyme-specific proteins, I'm very doubtful that they were made against the flu virus and happened to attach to the Lyme germ proteins. Okay, I mean, like, I think there's way less than a 1% chance that that could have happened. All right, and also a second point again, that when we make viruses or antibodies against viruses, the ones that can cross-attach to Lyme are not the flu ones. They are Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, human herpes virus type 6. Okay, all right. So I hope that answers your question. Good luck to you, Kay. Hello, Kim. Let's see. Thanks for doing these webinars. So helpful. You're welcome. My daughter is being treated for low adrenals. The doctor prescribed 15 milligrams cortisol with supplements. Will rifampin put out cortisol? Doctor says it's fine to use together, but I've read rifampin can significantly reduce cortisol levels. Huh. Actually, let me look something up. I'm not familiar with that. I have not seen that to occur. But let me look at one source here real quick. And actually, I'm looking up one of my drug directories real quickly here. Rifampin is, I like using rifampin in Lyme, but one problem with rifampin is it has a lot of drug interactions, and I am not always able to keep every one of them straight here. So just bear with me a minute here. No, I don't see that. I'm not aware of that. And even when I look in my drug directory about possible interactions, I don't see that either. So that has not been my experience. And it's not something that others, at least in the drug directories, recommend or note either. So I think you're okay mixing those together. Okay? All right. Thanks, Kim. Good luck to your daughter. Hello, Randy. You'll see at Woodland Essence, I found a tincture compound containing Cryptolepis, Isastis root, Houttenia, skullcap, and licorice root. Is this a good combination for Lyme and Babs? Research said all herbs are cooling, and I have sweats and heat, frontal dizzy headache, bad muscle weakness, filtered, foggy brain. Randy, hold on. I want to see if I can find if there's more that you wrote here. Just a minute. Oh, all right. So, Randy, that tincture is probably an interesting tincture. So the Cryptolepis and the this tincture could possibly treat Babesia and could possibly treat Bartonella, especially with that Houttenia in there. The Cryptolepis would target Babesia. Licorice is going to probably more or less boost the immune system. Anyhow, this isn't a tincture I would wind up using. I don't know that it would help you. I will sometimes use a Cryptolepis tincture on its own, 5 milliliters 3 times a day to treat Babesia just by itself. Hutania, I usually would mix together actually with Sida acuta. As I mentioned earlier tonight, that would be how I would go after Bartonella. I don't think this is necessarily a good or bad mix. I think there's better ways you could approach Babesia or better ways you could treat Bartonella if you happen to have those. Okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Randy. Hello, Judy. Thank you for all you do for us, Dr. Ross. You're welcome. My doctor thinks my cholesterol is high because of my Lyme. She wants me to start progesterone cream to help balance my hormones. Do you think it's safe? So first of all, I don't know your age, so it would help in trying to decide whether hormones are good to use. Age is also part of that consideration, and I don't know anything about breast issues or breast cancer issues that you might have either. Okay, so it's hard for me to say. Do I think that progesterone will help lower cholesterol? That is not the approach I would use. I'm not clear that it will make any difference on that. Okay, that is not an approach I would wind up using. All right. All right, there you go, Judy. Thank you for the question. That's part of a question I answered earlier. Hello, Kim. I am not sure what that was part of. I can't remember the original question. And I've got, it looks like some questions that were written twice here. Just a minute here. I'm trying to get those out. All right, here we are. Looks like a new question. Hi, John. Let's see. Hi. 1 month into treatment, my combo of ceftriaxone, azithromycin, minocycline, and Bactrim has stopped working for Bartonella, Borrelia, and Chlamydia pneumoniae. Doctor wants to change Bactrim to rifampicin. He is unsure whether to stay with azithromycin or go to clarithromycin. What is your opinion? So, probably what I would do with this. So, first of all, in the current regimen you're on, that azithromycin, minocycline, and Bactrim, those three drugs are a triple combination against Bartonella. Okay. Also, all of those are helping with Lyme, as well as the ceftriaxone is helping with Lyme too. Okay. In terms of Bartonella and Chlamydia pneumoniae, anything that is intracellular, that works inside cells or intracellular antibiotics can go after those. That would be your azithromycin, minocycline, and Bactrim that you're currently on. Another way you could do that would be with the rifamycin, rifampin, which is a very useful Bartonella chlamydia intracellular agent, all right? And you could couple it either with the azithromycin or the clarithromycin. To be honest, in my experience, I think they're both equally effective. Either using rifampin with azithromycin or rifampin with clarithromycin. I think they are both equally effective, okay? In general, if you were not on rifampin or rifamycin, clarithromycin is a stronger antibiotic for Lyme and intracellular infections than the azithromycin. However, the rifampin, decreases your biaxin levels, okay? And so therefore, because it reduces those biaxin levels, which is clarithromycin, it may make it so that really an azithromycin rifampin versus a clarithromycin rifampin combo are relatively the same in strength, okay? Now, the other thing your doctor may want to do, if you want to have a stronger triple drug regimen to go after these germs, you might consider doing a doxycycline, clarithromycin, rifamycin protocol. And yes, the rifampin, rifamycin also decreases doxy levels. Believe it alters the doxy levels, but that's okay. And what you might do is 100 milligrams twice a day of doxy. And yeah, I am intentionally saying a lower dose than a typical Lyme dose, but 100 milligrams twice a day, coupled with clarithromycin 500 milligrams twice a day, coupled with rifamycin, rifampin 300 milligrams, 2 pills 1 time a day. that could be a nice combination, triple drug regimen to go after your Bartonella and the chlamydia pneumonia as well too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, John. Oh, okay. Hi, Alice. Let's see. I'm on Eliquis for life. Can you provide something else to take in place of curcumin, since this is a blood thinner? Yeah, I mean, you might try the herb called quercetin. Quercetin is a bioflavonoid that comes from the skin of colorful fruits and vegetables. It has a couple effects. Number one, it can decrease histamine. So if you happen to be somebody who has mast cell activation syndrome, or if you have a lot of allergies, it can help regulate those allergies. Histamines are made inside mast cells, so it stabilizes those, okay? But the second thing that it does is it gets inside white blood cells and decreases their cytokine production. If you're to do it, it's 250 milligram pill, and you wind up doing 2 pills 3 times a day, okay? In addition to lower cytokines, one thing you could look at doing too is to be on glutathione. And for that, I like a product made by Research Nutritionals called Trifortify. It's a liposomal glutathione. Because it's liposomal, it means it's microscopically wrapped in fat, and that helps to increase its absorption, okay? And you would want to do 5 milliliters of that one time a day, which is equivalent of about 400 to 500 milligrams one time a day of glutathione. Glutathione is a very strong antioxidant, lowers oxidizing agents that are triggering white blood cells to make cytokines. So you can sometimes combine an something that blocks cytokine production, like quercetin or curcumin, along with an agent that lowers oxidizing agents that trigger cytokine production, and that would be glutathione. In addition, glutathione helps your liver work more effectively to get toxins out. Getting toxins out, increased toxins in you, triggers cytokines. Lowering them decreases cytokines as well too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Alice. Oh. Hello, Lisa. Let's see. Hi. Is there anything we can do to help with the investigation, like write letters? Also, diagnosed with dysautonomia. Is that caused by Lyme? Can olive leaf and reishi mushrooms be taken with autoimmune issues? Okay, a number of things there. So what Lisa's alluding to is the fact that I have been under indictment by investigation by my medical board now for it's coming up about 2.5 years now. It's getting to be a little ridiculous. And it's for managing Lyme disease. It's for managing somebody that got well. How do you like that? Pharmacy complained about some doses of medicines that I was using, and the board came after me for that. And although I have an agreement with them, they're not letting go. And I think it's all going to work out in the end. But it is, many of you may know, if you're trying to come see me for an in-person visit, that I've limited to not taking new patients until I get it straightened out with my board, which still may be about another 6 months to a year, believe it or not. And we're mounting a court challenge to go after them at this point. But and it's all because I helped somebody live. That's just how crazy it is, actually. They came after me for helping somebody that had mold toxicity illness and Lyme disease that was in hospice. She was dying. And now she's out trying to get pregnant. Okay, that's how good her life has changed around by helping her. And that's why they came after me. And they didn't like some of the dosing on medicines that I wound up using. So anyhow, and so in terms of your writing and helping, no, they would ignore it. My patient even wrote them; they ignored it. They don't care about health. They just care about maintaining status quo of whatever it is they feel like maintaining status quo about. Okay, so but thank you for that. But please don't do that. And again, I think it's all going to work out in the end anyhow. In terms of dysautonomia, so the autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that regulates adrenaline and anti-adrenaline, okay? And there's a nerve called the vagal nerve, which is one of what we call the cranial nerves. It's a big nerve that comes out of the bottom of the head, the base of the skull. and it regulates. It basically regulates, is the main nerve involved in regulating the amount of adrenaline and anti-adrenaline that you have. Now, there's two things in Lyme disease, tick-borne illness, that can lead to dysregulation of adrenaline and anti-adrenaline, or you're calling it dysautonomia, okay? And that is, number one, Lyme can infect the vagal nerve. And when it infects the vagal nerve, it sometimes results in it not working correctly, all right? Also, we tend to see that people with Babesia have a lot of symptoms that suggest dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system as well too. So, for instance, the panic attacks are adrenaline surges that people get with Babesia. Air hunger is due to adrenaline surges that Babesia. The headaches, frontal headaches that people with Babesia often can get are related to excess adrenaline. Racing and skipping of the heart, excess adrenaline. So you get dysregulation also. And some of the temperature spikes you get is due to dysautonomia as part of Babesia as well too. So when you have dysautonomia, you have to wonder about two infections. Could it be Babesia? Could it be Lyme that could be affecting it? Okay. And then in terms of olive leaf and reishi mushroom, and reishi, everyone is spelled reishi, reishi mushrooms. Can they be taken in autoimmune issues? The answer is yes. So by autoimmune, I think you mean your immune system is attacking you, okay? Like in rheumatoid arthritis, sometimes Lyme can trigger that too. Lyme can trigger the immune system to attack you. Lupus, arthritis, those kind of arthritis where the immune system is turned on you and is attacking your own tissues as though they were a germ or something foreign that shouldn't be there. Now, what olive leaf extract and reishi mushrooms do, olive leaf causes more white blood cells to be produced that fight bacterial infections, don't necessarily turn on your tissues, okay? And olive leaf also kills viruses directly as well. Reishi mushrooms turns on a type of white blood cell called T cells that attack germs, but again, they're not going to be involved in autoimmune illness. So therefore, I use these even in people with autoimmune illness, and I don't see any problem with doing that, okay? All right. Thank you for that question. Excuse me here just a minute. All right, let's see here. Regarding mold treatment, cholestyramine and diflucan, diagnosed with Lyme and now mold exposure, can people with Morgellons and Lyme and possible BART and now mold get well? How? And how do you treat this? What order? So the answer is, can you get well? Absolutely. So for instance, the patient that I got reported to the board had severe mold toxicity issue as her primary issue, and Lyme as her secondary issue. She did not have Morgellons. So first of all, Morgellons, everyone, is a skin condition that we sometimes see in Lyme. We're not fully sure what it is, why it happens. There's many theories about that it can be from normal germs that might live on the skin that because of immune suppression caused by Lyme, that those germs invade the skin and start giving you these rashes, and skin breakdown, skin lesions that occur in Morgellons. But to be honest with you, when you look at studies about what these things are, it's not 100% clear, okay? What we do know, though, is that if you treat Lyme, however you're going to treat Lyme, by getting Lyme under control, the immune system starts working better and Morgellons goes away. So the treatment for Morgellons tends to be Lyme germ treatments, okay? All right, so that's number one on that. In terms of and the other thing was, with this kind of mix of things, it might take a good 2 years or so from the beginning of treatment to recover, okay? What would you go after first? Well, first of all, you can mix a mold detox treatment along with a Lyme and Bartonella treatment all at the same time, but it might be hard to do. What I usually will do when I'm looking at a complex like that is I'll try to figure out what is the most likely thing that caused all of the big decline. So for instance, if I've got somebody that tests positive for Lyme and they're here to see me for Lyme, and I'm taking history from them, and I learned that they were living in a house full of black mold that they could see on the walls, and it's in that house that they got sick initially, guess what I'm probably going to treat first? Probably the mold toxicity, all right? Because it's in that house where they were breathing in all these mold toxins that they got sick. They might be one of the 25% of people that have mold toxin illness, and they get mold toxin illness because they can't remove those mold toxins once they get in them. Mold toxin illness looks just like Lyme disease. And the reason it does is that mold triggers cytokines. If you happen to be one of the 25% of people that cannot remove mold toxins, they trigger your immune system to make cytokines. And remember earlier tonight, as I already said, if you have Lyme, the real reason you feel poorly is that your immune system is overproducing cytokines. Well, mold does the same thing, okay? Mold toxins do the same thing, all right? So in terms of what do I have a person go after first, I take a really good history. If it sounds like they were doing fairly well and they got symptomatic living in their mold-infested home, I'm probably going to remove mold toxins. And sometimes that's all you need to do. Yes, you can test positive for Lyme and get completely well just removing your mold toxins if they happen to be the big issue. So for instance, I've got a patient of mine that now is almost 100% well, that came to see me about 6 months ago, that had a positive Lyme test that another Lyme doctor here in the city was saying he needed to be on IV antibiotics to get well, and that he better go out to Washington, D.C. and see GemSec right away to get on a very powerful course of IV antibiotics because his brain was going to be ruined otherwise, okay? And his symptoms were severe fatigue. He could not think straight for anything. He had body pains. He had neuropathies. He was sick, okay? In fact, he barely couldn't communicate that well. He came in and did some talking himself, but his mother came in with him too. And I took a history and I said, that's fine. You got that positive Lyme test, but when did you get sick? And guess what? He was doing well until he moved into a house with mold. And when we looked at I can't even remember when he was bit by the tick. I don't know if we ever really determined when he was bit by the tick, but it was really clear to me he moved into a house full of mold, and within a month or two, he got sick. All right. So I ordered up a real-time lab test, which measures mold toxins, and it came back that he was sky high for most of the mold toxins. And so I chose to ignore his Lyme test and start to do detox work on just his mold toxins to begin with. And gradually he's doing better. It's now about, I think, 5 months in, and he's nearly 100% well. All right. Does he still have Lyme infection in him? Yes. Do we need to treat the Lyme infection? No, because his immune system is able to deal with it once we got the mold toxins out. Do I think any of his initial symptoms when he came to see me were Lyme? It's hard to say, because both Lyme and mold can trigger cytokine excess. But the big thing for him was figuring out what was the cause of his decline. Was it Lyme or was it mold? And by history, just taking a very careful history, I was able to figure out probably was mold toxins, okay? So you got to keep that in mind. So when your situation, I would look back and figure out, how were you doing until you lived in that place that had mold? You might not even be able to identify that house that had mold. And if you can't identify where you had your big mold exposures, then maybe it means that Lyme is your bigger problem. In which case, I would probably start treating Lyme and your Bartonella first for about 6 months. If you're not getting any better, then I might go after, continue to treat for the Lyme and then go after your mold toxicity, okay? So a lot of it depends on the order of what things happened. And that's from just taking a good history, okay? If you would like my opinion about where I would go first with you, and I would need to ask you a lot of questions to help figure that out, feel free to sign up for one of my one-to-one consults, okay? I'd be glad to help explore this with you where I would start first, okay? All right, good luck to you. Oh, one thing about Lyme, so just because you have a positive Lyme test does not necessarily mean you need to treat it. I know that may sound kind of strange, but here's why. So when we use antibiotics in Lyme, our goal, well, if we start treating your Lyme in the first month or two of infection, the goal is to wipe it out and make it so you don't have any symptoms, okay? If we start treating you a year or more after your infection, I don't think we ever get rid of every germ. Even when you're well, we don't get rid of every germ. So the goal in using antibiotics when you've been sick for a year or more, or if you've got infected a year or more before starting to get treated, the goal is to knock enough germ down that your immune system isn't so overwhelmed and it can deal with it and you get symptom free. But it's not to wipe it out, because we probably don't. All right. So the people that we start treating maybe between 2 months and a year, maybe some of those we wipe it out, some of those we don't. I don't think we really know. Okay. So if the goal of antibiotics generally is to get you asymptomatic or to get you functioning again, because we are unable to wipe this germ out in the majority of people that have it, there's no reason to wind up using antibiotics if you're already healthy and you have positive Lyme testing. There's no reason. You're already where you want to be at the end of antibiotics. The other concern I have with using antibiotics just to treat a test is that we may cause the germ to get stronger. Yeah, there's risk when we use antibiotics. One risk is we wipe out good bacteria in your intestines. Second risk is that maybe the germ responds by saying it's going to get stronger, and it becomes more resistant and to treatment, and then becomes more difficult to treat. Okay, so we got to be careful when we use antibiotics, and we shouldn't just treat a test. We should treat if somebody's got symptoms and has positive Lyme testing. All right, all right. Good luck to you. Thank you for the question. Let's see here. Hello, Michelle C. Hi. I'm having really bad neuro-Lyme symptoms. Is there anything that can help these symptoms? I have memory loss, fatigue, cognitive issues, brain fog, head pressure, inflammation in the brain. All right. So, Michelle, I'm going to just see if there was a second part here. Oh, yep, there was. And depression. Okay. So you got a lot of stuff going on. All right. So, with severe cognitive impairment, two things I would consider. One is it's possible you have Lyme, okay? And then secondly, with that degree of cognitive impairment you're describing and depression, I would also wonder about Bartonella. So step one, make sure you're treating the right infections, okay? All right, how do you figure out if you have Bartonella? Well, you could test for it, but we're only able to test well for 2 of a potential 30 strains. So generally, I'm going to treat based upon my clinical impression. Things that make me wonder about Bartonella are pain on the balls of the feet, so up near where your toes meet your feet on the bottom, okay? Ongoing pain in those areas, not pain that comes and goes, but it's pretty regular. Ongoing anxiety, ongoing depression, those can be part of Bartonella. Restless legs, feeling of something crawling on your legs, so you have to move them around a lot. Also, people with Bartonella sometimes develop inflammation of the bladder lining. We call that interstitial cystitis. And that can give you pain on urination, an urge to pee frequently. Okay, so you might consider if you have that. People with Bartonella often will have neurologic hypersensitivities like light touch or sound sensitivity. Sometimes with people with Bartonella will have tremors or seizures, or they may feel an internal buzzing on the inside. And then sometimes with Bartonella we'll get a lot of lymph nodes up in the neck area. Finally, Bartonella in some people gives a rash that looks like a scratch mark or stretch marks, okay? So if you have enough of those, you might want to think about treating for Bartonella too. Okay, so treat your Lyme, treat your Bartonella, all right? All right, and then there are some things you can do to repair the nerves and the energy factories inside of those nerves called mitochondria, all right? And so there's a whole article that I've written about this, but basically, you want to take supplements that are going to repair the fat membrane of the nerve and the fat membrane of the energy factories found in our nerves called mitochondria. That's a supplement called NT Factor Energy, made by Research Nutritionals. You would want to do 2 pills 3 times a day for 2 months. And then after 2 months, decrease that down to 1 pill 3 times a day for 4 months. All right. Again, that's repairing the nerve cell membrane. It's also repairing the covering of the mitochondria. Number 2, if you're not being treated for Babesia with Mepron or Malarone or anything that has a tovaquone in it, it's okay to take coenzyme Q10. So make sure you're not treating Babesia with one of those drugs. And if you're not, then you can take CoQ10 400 milligrams twice a day. CoQ10 helps carry a lot of electrons around nerves and around our mitochondria to create energy, okay? Number 3, get on glutathione. Glutathione is the master repairer of any injury to any cell in the body. It's the Mr. Fix-It. It fixes all, okay? And it's an antioxidant that's made in every one of our cells, but the trouble is it's there to repair damage. But if your cells are too injured, they've been trying to repair themselves for a while, and guess what they do? They develop an empty glutathione gas can, okay? So they're empty. So you need to give them more glutathione again. And the glutathione I like using for that is a liposomal variety, which means it's microscopically wrapped in fat to increase absorption. And that's a product called Trifortify. It's made by Research Nutritionals, also the same company that makes that NT factor, okay? And you would want to take 5 milliliters once or twice a day of that. And then finally, if you do not eat enough red meat, if you don't have red meat at least once a week, consider getting on something called acetyl L-carnitine. Carnitine. It's a protein you get from red meat, but it's used in mitochondria, the energy factories found in every one of our cells and our nerve cells. It's a transport vehicle that helps carry fat to the inside of the mitochondria where that fat can be burned into cell fuel. And if you're not having red meat, you're not getting enough of that. So you want to replace that too. And you would start it at 500 milligrams twice a day for 1 month, then decrease it to 500 milligrams one time a day after that, okay? And then last, decrease inflammation in the brain, all right? And what I'd like to use to do that is curcumin, a liposomal curcumin, a product made by Thorne called Mariva 500, 1 pill, 3 times a day, all right? Now, I've got all this written down in an article for you to take a look at. I'm just going to do a quick screen share so you can take a look at it later. Here, take a look at my chapter on brain and nerves. Okay, and I would take a look at this article called Brain Fog in Lyme Disease. You can fix it. And this is where I talk about the various steps that I was just telling you about. Okay, that's the article that you want to take a look at. Okay, all right. Hello, Joel. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What is known about the Lyme-like stari? Could IGeneX, Westerblot, cross-react and actually detect stari? I was IGeneX positive bands 31, 34, and 41. I suspect stari since I also have alpha gallus is possible. I live in Tennessee. How do you treat stari? I also have babesia and have major neuro issues. Joel, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to answer that question. I haven't confronted that issue before, and I wouldn't consider myself to have the expertise, enough of an expertise to be able to answer that for you tonight. I can look into it though. If you would, I'd appreciate if you would get a hold of me and just, if you'd send me a quick email to my email address, which is docmarty, it's DOCMARTY and then it's my practice name, which is the Healing Arts Partnership. So it's docmarty at THE and then healing, HEALING, arts, ARTS, partnership.net. If you would write this question to me through there, give me a couple of days, I'll get back to you. I need to pull up some information and look at that a little bit more. But I haven't directly had to address that in any one of my patients here, so I just need to refresh my memory on some things, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Joel. Hello, June. Let's see. Do you think cavitations contribute to poor recovery from tick-borne illnesses? What do you think of ozone treatment for cavitations? So I think some people, cavitations do block their treatment, but I think for the majority of people, they do not. So cavitations are little caves, if you will, that develop underneath the teeth where Lyme may hide out. And from there, may be hard to get rid of. I think that some antibiotics have the ability to get in there, but if you do have cavitations, one way to deal with them is ozone treatments. I do like that. And you would want to go to a biologic dentist, somebody that has the capability of doing x-rays where they can tell if you have cavitations, okay? But I think for the majority of people, we don't have to do anything special for them. I think just being on regular Lyme antimicrobials is enough to take care of it for most people. All right. Good luck, June. Hello, Liz. Let's see. NLA have Babesia antibodies per IGeneX test indicating active, indicated could get from mosquito, but did get insect bite in Costa Rica near a pool. All right. So I wonder if there's a second part here, Liz. Just a minute. Liz, I don't see another part to your question here, so I'm not able to answer that. Okay? All right. Sorry about that. Hello, Nina. Let's see. What are your thoughts about synapsin and how would you incorporate it into a treatment protocol? Thank you so much. I have really appreciated being able to participate in these webinars. I don't know the product synapsin, so bear with me. I'm going to just look it up real quick. Just a minute. We'll all look at it at the same time. Hold on here a minute. What I need to see is what's in it. So hold on a minute. So it's a protein that regulates neurotransmitters. And let me go back here. Before, nor have I seen it used for neurocognition issues at all. So I don't know. I can't comment on that one. All right. Thank you for stumping me this evening. As many of you know, I mean, there's a lot to know about this illness, and there are times I do get stumped. So, but that one I'm not familiar with at all. All right. Thanks, Nina. Hello, Dillick. Let's see. Can you take Capri Plus for yeast while you're on antibiotics? Absolutely. So Capri Plus, everybody, is a product made by a company called Karuna. It's Karuna. And it has caprylic acid in it, some garlic, and rosemary oil in it, too. It's useful for treating yeast, and I use it to treat active yeast infections. It's herbal, and it usually would take about 2 to 3 months to get rid of an active yeast overgrowth infection. But I also use it as an herbal medicine that you can use to prevent yeast overgrowth, okay? And in that case, I use it as 2 pills twice a day. Now, and it's okay to take with your antibiotics at the same time. I do that all the time because I'm trying to prevent people from getting too many yeast. So absolutely, that's okay. All right. The other thing that I will tell you right now, though, temporarily, the company that manufactures it is out of stock. And so I know that at Marty Ross MD Supplements, we're out of it right now. You may have to look elsewhere to see if you can find a supply of it. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Diane. Let's see. Is cat's claw constipating? I have not seen, and I use a lot of cat's claw in my practice. I haven't seen it specifically responsible for constipation in somebody, okay? Now, having said that, there is a Marty Ross MD rule of medicine, and that rule of medicine is anything can happen to anyone with anything. Yeah, that's true. So we all can have side effects that may not be common side effects to medicines that may happen in us, all right? So one way to find out if it's constipating you is stop it. See if your constipation resolves. If it does, guess what? Cat's claw is constipating in you. Okay. So those would be some thoughts. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Let's see. My doctor, hi Brenda. Let's see. My doctor is treating my chronic Lyme with antibiotics and herbs from symptoms. How important is it to actually have positive testing? If I do testing, do I come off of my treatment before testing? I've been treating daily since August 2017. Okay, so it depends. So first of all, you can diagnose Lyme without positive testing, all right? So there's one situation in particular that is diagnosable as Lyme absolutely with as good a certainty as any testing, and that is if you had a known tick attached that gave you a bullseye rash and you developed Lyme-like symptoms within a week or two of that. That is Lyme disease. You don't need to do any testing to diagnose that, okay? But Lyme disease always is a clinical diagnosis, and there's 4 things you consider. One is there a risk of getting it? So for instance, people that have no tick bites in New Jersey, where 95% of ticks carry Lyme, have a high risk, okay? People that hunt are at risk. People that do backpacking and hiking are at risk. All right, so if you happen to be somebody that has high risk, especially with a known tick bite, you got a lot of symptoms that look like Lyme, and you're getting better with treatment, I don't think you necessarily need to test. However, I do like getting positive testing. And the reason I like doing positive testing is that Lyme is hard to treat. And sometimes it's easier to keep going forward with your treatment if you've got a positive test to hang your hat on, okay? So I often will ask my patients to try to get a positive test, but I'll treat even if testing is negative if I think there's strong reasons to believe it's Lyme giving them their problems, okay? So, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. Now, do you need to stop antibiotics before? No, you can actually get a Western blot. Actually, there's a greater chance of having a positive Western blot, a Lyme test, if you actually are on antibiotics at the time. I know some of my colleagues that do another test, which is called an ELISpot. They suggest that you are off of antibiotics, but I see no scientific evidence that says that makes a difference. I think you could still be on antibiotics and have that done as well too. Okay, I think that's more opinion on their part rather than based on any kind of reality. All right, so I think you can actually get whatever the test is that your doctors want to do. I think you can get it done while still being on antibiotics. Okay, all right. Yeah. And, well, the only test you would not want to do on antibiotics, there's 2. One is you do not want to get DNA testing for the germ, which is a test called a PCR, nor do you want to do culture where they're actually trying to grow the germ. You don't want to do that if you've been are on antibiotics. You want to take a break of about a month, get off the antibiotics for a month before you do a Lyme disease blood culture, or you try to see if there's DNA of the germ in your blood. You definitely want to be off the antibiotics for at least a month before those tests are done. But if your doctors are going to do something called an ELISpot, or a Western blot, or something called an immunoblot, you do not need to be off your antibiotics before you get those done, okay? Now, if all of those words and terms I just said are a foreign language to you and you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, let me show you an article that you can take a look at, okay? I'm going to do a quick screen share here. All right, so in Treat Lyme, I have a chapter called How to Diagnose. Well, actually, there's a chapter called Test. All right, and so take a look at my article called A Review of Lyme Infection Tests, Pass or Fail, where I review the ins and outs of Lyme testing, talk about PCR DNA testing, talk about cultures, talk about ELISpots, talk about immunoblots, talk about Western blots. It's all in here, okay? All right. One other thing that you ought to take a look at regarding trying to figure out if you have Lyme, again, I said it can be a clinical diagnosis, would be to take a look at my free reads chapter here. And take a look at my article called How to Diagnose Chronic Lyme Disease More Than a Test. It's a half-hour video article where I review the ins and outs of how you determine you have Lyme, including even if you have negative testing, okay? It's a more thorough review of that whole issue than I can give here in this brief webinar tonight. All right. Thanks for that question, Brenda. Hello, Sita. Let's see. Do you recommend Japanese knotweed for lowering inflammation? It's a possible way you could lower it. I tend to think that curcumin, liposomal curcumin, works better. And so I tend not to use it, and I tend not to do the Japanese knotweed. My preference is to use liposomal curcumin, that thorn product that I mentioned earlier tonight. It's a 500 milligram pill that you would wind up taking one pill 3 times a day. Okay. For bad inflammation, you could do 2 pills 3 times a day. Okay. All right. All right. So let me move on here. So thank you for that question. All right. Hello, Linda. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. Confirmed positive with latest IGeneX test. Started with a month of biocidin and lipobiocidin and did some cleansing by way of Klinghardt. Now taking Cemento and Banderol. Should I continue to take biocidin? It's a good question. I am doing that sometimes. So everyone, Cemento and Banderol. Cemento is Nutramedix's brand of cat's claw. Banderol is Nutramedix's brand of Otoba bark extract. And I'm just going to make a quick comment about that. Nutramedix, many of you may be aware of, is no longer allowing off-site sales of their product online. So in other words, retailers like me, I used to carry their products. I can't anymore. They won't let me carry them. If you are able to buy online, it's because you've got somebody that's either counterfeiting or they've got old supply that they're still getting rid of, okay? The problem is when Nutramedix did that, they no longer allow the discounts that places like I used to offer. So their product is ridiculously expensive at this point. And so I'd encourage you all to take a look at other options. So I have a different brand now that I'm carrying through Marty Ross MD supplements by a company called Wildcraft Herbs. They're a British Columbia company. And it's actually probably a bit more potent than the Otoba or the Banderol and the Cemento. But you might look at those as options. They're a lot lower in cost and I think actually a stronger product. And that would be the Wildcraft Herbs Otoba, which replaces the Banderol here, and the Wildcraft Herbs Cat's Claw, which replaces Cemento. I think a better product, more effective because it's stronger, and also a lot lower cost too. Okay, I'm really unhappy with what Nutramedix has done in terms of. I think they're really price gouging out there right now. Anyhow, that's my opinion on that. Can you take Cat's Claw and Otoba along with biocidin? Absolutely. So as many of you know, Otoba and Cat's Claw, I've recommended it for years because I find it's been effective. I started using those 2 herbs based upon research published by Eva Choppy. That's SAPI. She's a researcher, PhD researcher out of New Haven, Connecticut, runs a really novel Lyme lab, one of the better Lyme research labs that we have in the country. And she grew Lyme on petri dishes and tried to see what worked best. All right. So she exposed them to various antibiotics and herbal antibiotics too. And what she found is that both of these herbs individually, the Otoba and the Cat's Claw, did good killing of all 3 forms of Lyme germ and even removed biofilms. But when you put the 2 together, there was just this whopping astronomical kill. They removed 100% of biofilms. And they did a great job of killing all 3 forms of the germ. All right. So that's when I started using. That was about 6 years ago. I find those 2 alone work well on Lyme about 90% of the time. About 6 months ago or so, I started working with the biocidin. And my preference on the biocidin is actually the liposomal biocidin because it does a better job getting into the brain tissues too. Now, biocidin has about 10 different components to it, of which the major germ killers for Lyme would be garlic. It's got some rosemary oil, lavender oil in it as well too. It's got some components that can treat parasites in your intestines, can treat bacterial overgrowth in your small bowel. It's got some immune boosters in it. But the thing that I like about it in using it is it can kill Lyme. Petri dish experiments tell us that it removes Lyme biofilms. But here's the interesting part. And I am using it with either prescription antibiotics or cat's claw and Otoba, because it's also shown on Petri dish experiments to block pumps inside Lyme germs that remove herbal and prescription antibiotics once they get to the inside. So this stinking germ Lyme, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that it's tricky to treat, but one of the ones that it appears that is clear is that the germ has the ability to develop pumps that pump the antibiotics out after we put them in. So the biocidin can block that, okay? And so that's why I like using biocidin. I like using it along with an Otoba and along with the cat's claw, because I think it makes it so that they work more strongly in the germ. In addition, you just get a lot of good stuff out of another set of killers that can go after the Lyme germ as well too. So yes, I have been using those three together for a number of my visits, or patients actually. Okay, all right. Thanks for that question, Linda. Hello, Pamela. Let's see. Recently, I found a PubMed article, chronic Lyme borreliosis at the root of MS. Is a cure with antibiotics attainable? Have you found any correlation with MS and Lyme in your practice? All that you do for us is so appreciated. Thank you, Pamela. So, most of us that treat Lyme recognize that Lyme is a cause of some MS. Not all MS is caused by Lyme, okay? So multiple sclerosis is a neurologic construct. And what I mean by those words is we see certain things neurologically, we check off enough of those boxes about having lesions in your brain, certain symptoms, and we call that MS. That doesn't say what causes the MS though, okay? And so there may be a variety of different causes of these lesions and neurologic problems that we see that people have with MS, of which Lyme can be one of those causes. Now, is it curable? What I tell my patients is this, and this is based upon conversations I've had with a number of my colleagues as well too. What I see with MS Lyme is about 25% of the time that we try to treat it, we get nowhere, either with fatigue or body pains or any of the neurologic symptoms. I think there's 25% of people that we can get great improvements and get lesions to go away. I think about 25% of the time. The remaining 50% are people that we probably slow down the progress of the neurologic side of the illness, and we get rid of a lot of their physical complaints like the fatigue and the body pain, okay? That's what I tend to see in my practice. That's also the experience that I know a number of my colleagues have in their practices as well too, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Pamela. Thank you for that question. All right. Hello, Judy. Let's see. Sorry, Judy, here we go. Oh, you don't have to apologize, Judy. I'm 59 years old and no breast cancer history. I also have high LA protein and family history of high cholesterol. This is from my other, on progesterone cream. Yeah, I would have no problem with you using progesterone cream. I guess what I would say, though, is I'm not sure that that's how you're going to lower your cholesterol. So cholesterol, about 10% of our body's level is based on what we eat. The other 90% is produced by our liver. And if you've got marked elevations, in addition to trying to bind them in the intestines to pull them out and decreasing what you take you eat, which is only going to affect 10% of your level, sometimes you have to work in a way that gets the liver not to produce as many. And what does that are the prescription statins, or you can use something called red yeast rice extract that blocks your liver's ability to make that cholesterol. I'm not a big believer in progesterone as a way of regulating cholesterol levels. Okay. All right. Thank you for reposting that second part of your question there. All right. Let's see here. Hello, Colleen. Hi, Dr. Ross. Why do certain symptoms fluctuate? For example, one moment my body is raging inferno and 10 minutes later it is not. And my pain moves around too. Why do things fluctuate so much? Good question. I don't know why. What I will tell you is that wandering symptoms, pain here one time, pain there the next time, is something very unique to Lyme. I think many of you may be familiar with a colleague of mine, Richard Horowitz, that has written quite a bit about Lyme. And has developed a questionnaire about Lyme. And he's been trying to validate certain questions in that questionnaire, trying to see if certain questions have a greater chance of indicating whether you have Lyme or not. And what he has found is that when you have wandering neuropathy or wandering pain, that is so unique to Lyme that those symptoms alone could be almost diagnostic for Lyme. And that's pretty impressive. But why that happens, I don't know. But it is very much a type of thing that we can see. I will tell you the raging inferno, hot 1 minute, cold the next, is not so much Lyme. It could be Lyme. It could be due to the autonomic dysfunction, the dysregulation of adrenaline, anti-adrenaline that can occur with Lyme. But also think about Babesia. It happens in Babesia as well, too. So that would just be a comment for you to think about, okay? If you're wondering if you have Babesia, take a look at my How to Diagnose chapter and read the article on how to diagnose Babesia, okay? All right. So one quick thing here. I'm going to do a quick screen share here towards the end. I got a lot of helpful information here. You do need to subscribe. If you're wondering why I have people subscribe, it's because it takes a long time to write these articles. I can spend a good weekend sometimes putting one of these things together, okay? And it's useful information. So if you want to read more about why you should subscribe, take a look here at my About page. And through this page, you can actually go ahead and even subscribe, okay? And every time you do subscribe to Treat Lyme, keep in mind that supports my ability to do these free webinars as well, too, okay? And I appreciate that. Second thing, tonight I mentioned a number of supplements, and many of you may be wondering where to get them. Or what brands I would use. Take a look at my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements. This is where my patients get their supplements, and anyone can get their supplements here. So take a look here for anything. If you're wondering what brands I would recommend or what am I actually using with my patients, keep in mind I've curated these to find product lines that have the greatest chance of helping you and not hurting you. Okay? All right. So let me go back here. For me for tonight, everyone. I've had a good time visiting with you, but all good things must come to an end. So I've got 2 Basenjis, my dogs that need to be walked, and I've got to go home and feed them and feed me too. Keep an eye out for your email tomorrow morning around 6:30 a.m. On the second here, you're going to be moved back over to Treat Lyme, where you can either sign up for the book like I just showed you how to do, or you can sign up for next week's webinar. Yep, there's going to be another webinar next week and the week after, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for being with me here tonight, and good luck, everyone, as you're trying to figure out how to recover from this thing called Lyme disease. All right? Good night.